Hi, everyone. Is back. More Epstein. More Epstein. This could go on for a while.
Well, it should, in a sense. No?
Yeah.
All I have to say is that Epstein didn't switch himself out.
Didn't die.
He didn't switch himself out.
No. No, not from one of the most secure prisons in New York. No chance.
That's
such a high-profile case.
I've just dropped that, though. That's an update.
Okay. What did you mean by switch? You leave the prison, right?
Switch himself out, yeah.
Yeah.
Not switch him out with. He was switched out.
With another body.
Hello.
Who's the body?
Are you not aware of that?
Oh, yeah, I am.
Particular controversy there.
But what's the thing you're dropping?
Well, it used to be Epstein didn't kill himself.
Yeah.
That's not good enough. It's Epstein didn't switch himself out.
He had to have accomplices, of course. Many key ones. Way up.
People thought off he didn't kill himself.
Yeah.
Right? Obviously. So, but that's
obvious.
That's gone, like. That's not even...
That's so 2019.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's Epstein didn't switch himself out. Implication being it. It's a loaded implication. First of all, he's not dead.
Yeah. He's alive.
Second, he's
alive through all of this.
Second, he came out of the prison, and obviously he didn't just walk out of the prison himself.
And do you think he's living in retirement and not doing any of this stuff anymore?
He's in. Like we said last week, he's in. He's in a hole in the ground somewhere. It's the best place for people like that. But alive.
Still using Fortnite, apparently.
Maybe.
People noticed this week his old account is active. But they geolocated it to Israel, but for what it's worth. That his Fortnite account is active from Israel. So you think to yourself, well, what would someone like that be playing games like Fortnite for? Well, there are other references in the files to World of Warcraft and other games. It seems that what they were doing was playing the games, but actually they were using it as a system for transferring funds.
Yeah.
So they use virtual funds like gold or other coinage in the games as a banking system,
right? As
a placeholder for actual transactions to take place in the real world. So people say this goes deep. It's pretty deep. I mean, it's pretty and
what gets me is the
scale and the variety of crimes is phenomenal.
What gets me is the consistency of Jewish people on people of the Jewish faith, let's say. People who identify culturally as Jews. Maybe even that's enough. You don't have to be Jewish faith. You can just identify as a cultural Jew. Like Gad Saad, actually, he identifies as a cultural Jew, which doesn't make any sense to me, but there you go. People have to identify with something, I suppose. But just saw, what do you call him, Alex Berenson,
New Yorker.
a notable person of Jewish culture or faith, or both, maybe just culture in his case. He's probably a bit of an atheist. His response to someone who just said, the rape and murder of children is annoying to you. All the respect I had for you or COVID has completely vanished, right? So this is somebody in response to Berenson saying that the Epstein Files were annoying to him for some reason. And his response is that there's zero evidence of rape or murder of children in the Epstein documents. I mean, zero. Epstein committed crimes and was punished. He should have been punished harder, but he had good lawyers, as was his right. Moral panics are dangerous no matter how good they feel. So
Moral panic. That was the New York Times headline last week. Moral panic.
Yeah.
So in response to Alex, I would say define evidence, because what you do have are multiple orders over a decade and a half of large drums of sulfuric acid to be sent to the island. You have a trapdoor in the house that drops into the water below. You do have a lot of, did they ever say it themselves? You've got a lot of testimony, and some of the girls are named. Most of it's anonymous, but of the extent of, abuse of children.
I kind of get what he's saying in a sense, but it is a bit tone deaf. Let's say, and he can do that. We can, either deliberately or because of his own affiliations, let's say, he's going to choose to be tone deaf over this and choose to take the kind of the intellectual high ground, let's say, and say, well, look, there's no official evidence. This is all just speculation, blah, 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 blah. And it's okay, so you're biased. But this kind of thing where, in context, like you said, question would be how do you define evidence? The context of the situation is that, it's always been the case with quote unquote conspiracy theories. Now, everybody's saying that conspiracy theories have all come true, right? There's no longer any conspiracy theories left. They've all been proven true, and etc. But in the context of conspiracy theories, since conspiracy theories have existed, the baseline to them, or the underlying theme of our line of force of a conspiracy theory, is that it posits evildoing amongst or wrongdoing, serious wrongdoing, among people in positions of power so great that they are able to totally or largely and very effectively cover them up, and only kind of circumstantial evidence, let's say, remains. So based on the idea that you can dismiss all conspiracy theories, all conspiracy theories should be dismissed on the basis that there is no hardcore evidence for them, is a bit obtuse, because almost baked into the definition of conspiracy theory is the idea that there won't be any hardcore evidence for it. Therefore, you shouldn't make that a prerequisite for believing them. You know what I mean? It's kind of stupid. Like, don't even involve yourself in conspiracy theories and at all. Don't even consider them, because if you demand that hard evidence be presented to back them up, well, then that's a non-starter. There's no point in even beginning to even consider them.
It's a classical liberal metaphysic, which you see in science as, no, it cannot be factually so unless you can reproduce it in a lab.
Right.
And you attempt to do so, but your conditions aren't the same, and it never happens. And yet people go, there it is. There's another one. There's another one. It's obviously there. No, that doesn't exist because it didn't meet the liberal metaphysic of what we define as fact. But then you can also say to Alex, okay, so there's an email here from a billionaire, I forget who it was, Durbin or something. He's saying, "Hi, Jeff. Had a great time. Really sorry for the massive kerfuffle I caused. I nearly killed her. How's she doing? Is everything okay there? Yeah, it's fine. Taken care of." Like, at the very least, here's the standard then. If we say that's not evidence or proof of a serious crime that took place there, why is that person's name redacted? Okay, fine. He's redacted because he's not guilty of anything yet. As Tucker said on his shows, in his monologue, though, that is, at the very least, grounds for an interview. Just talk to him. What was that about?
That doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. It's a fact. That's a fact. The fact that doesn't happen is a fact.
Yeah. What annoys me is that these are the same people like Alec Berenson and co. But, obviously we understand why they're doing it, because they're Jewish. So, and this... this would reflect... I don't know if it would reflect badly on them. I don't know if they feel it, but the Jews as a group, let's say, they probably have an eye on the negative connotations or negative implications for Jews in general, right? They're all fighting anti-Semitism, all this kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Medieval blood libels.
Jeffrey Epstein was a Jew. A lot of the people mentioned in the Epstein Files are all Jewish and all this kind of stuff. Obviously, they're circling the wagons and protecting their own right. It's in-group identity protection, basically. But what annoys me is that him saying stuff like that, and other people who say similar things, is that these are the same people who demanding, hard facts on claims about Epstein, etc., are the same people who, if they were in a house, I would hope anyway, that if they were in maybe in Epstein, I don't know if they'd be in Epstein's house, but if they were in a situation with someone like Epstein or someone like Epstein and his friends who are carrying on in the same way, let's say, in a subtle way, without any hard evidence, right? Say you're at a party with Epstein there, or some kind of party like this with people like Epstein there. There's pictures on the wall of young children and naked in bathtubs or something like that. People are all kind of a bit strange and maybe making weird references, whatever. You're getting a creepy vibe from them. I would like to think that people like Alec Berenson would, in that situation, decide to extract himself from that situation and say, look, I have to make an excuse and I have to leave, and then afterwards conclude that there was a really weird vibe about that place and, something pretty creepy. Just those people are creepy. The context, the circumstantial evidence, let's say, in the house, in terms of the pictures, the furnishings, things they said, nothing explicit, but it all just put together a picture for me of something very creepy and sordid, and I didn't want to be associated with it. So he would take action himself personally, I would hope, or a normal person would take action they would take physical action to remove themselves from a situation on the basis of the kind of circumstantial evidence that he online dismisses as being any evidence of any wrongdoing. So it's a bit hypocritical, let's say.
We know in the files of another high-profile New York Jew who did exactly that. Norman Finkelstein.
Right.
Invited somewhere or something to be associated with an event. And no, he said something to the effect of, he talked about a third person, and he said, I would hope that if it was your daughters who were near this man, that you would throttle, I think, Dershowitz and Epstein. So he didn't need direct experience of that himself. He didn't have to be in the vibe self. He could glean that already in the mid 2000s or 2010s. So it comes down to something individual. There you see, two members, same tribe. One has the appropriate response, and the other is like, the other is doing what the vast majority, or at least with influence, are doing all week long, which is circling the wagons. You said you were surprised by the number of Jews, but I'm more surprised by the number. I mean, it's it's non-partisan. I see. I mean, obviously there's a lot of Jews names and stuff, but there's a lot of non-Jews.
Yeah, for sure. But you can do the statistics if you want.
You've also got how do you separate
on the percentage of population? It's
the female victims who grew up and became his assistants and madams. Ghislaine Maxwell was one, but she was practically retired. The latter madams are the ones who were his victims in later years.
So what are you saying?
But what's the difference between them and the women who spoke out? I mean, that's night and day response to abuse. And
yeah, well, these people, cite trauma and all that kind of stuff, and Stockholm syndrome, etc., etc. But yeah, statistically, again, it's the old thing. You can say that there's it's non-denominational, but I mean, someone would have to run the actual statistics, but
as with all things, the overrepresentation is noticeable.
2% of the population.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
if they're 2% of the population, there should only be 2% of Jewish names in the Epstein Files.
Yeah,
statistically. But there's not, obviously, because, well, maybe there shouldn't be, because Epstein himself was a Jew, so he's going to favour Jews. Because, as we've seen from the Epstein Files, certain Jewish people obviously tend to, see themselves obviously as an in-group, very, very much so, maybe more so than any other. And they also
talk to each other about the goyim.
Right, exactly. They reinforce that in-group preference by talking about others, which is pretty much everybody else who's not a Jew, as goys and goyim. So, and that's in the Epstein Files, so that's no longer a conspiracy theory. Hopefully you won't get banned for saying that, or accused of hate speech for saying that. Because apparently they do. Some of them anyway. Of course, we're not talking about all Jews or all anything here, because you can't talk about that. But
well, we have to see where this goes. In the maximalist conspiracy theory, this is a for Israel project ultimately, right? We saw the tweet last week on the day of from the Daily Mail. The headline, they were quoting with Epstein was a Putin agent. We laughed and we're like, well, they're not serious, are they? Well, all week long that's certainly been the British media and other Euro media are taking that tack. If they seriously circle the wagons on that.
On what? On Russia?
On Russia?
No, they're not.
But more to the point,
they can't.
On it being therefore it being anti-Semitic to even talk about it being Israel focused or Jew centric.
But the horse is bolder than that one. Epstein's Jewish, and he hung out with a former Israeli prime minister. I mean, they can't reasonably claim that it's anti-Semitic to say that Epstein was probably associated with the state of Israel, when you have images and videos of Ehud Barak sticking his nose out of Epstein's New York mansion.
Yeah.
I mean, they only can say that stuff about things that don't have that kind of evidence for them. You know what I mean? That they can half legitimately claim as being, just made up anti-Semitic content. But this is like, not even they can go that far.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's they're confused at the moment. In the UK, the British police are, I don't want to say raiding, but they've certainly been to Mandelson's house.
Mm-hmm.
Mandelson's house, we know from the files, he's renting from the Rothschilds in Wiltshire, in Leafy, England. He is now it was a topic of discussion in Prime Minister's questions in a packed Parliament on Wednesday. If they don't want to, it'll come up in
the packed
debates.
Parliament.
Not on the Wednesday Prime Minister's questions. It'll just come up as a side issue, and there'll be 5 people in the chambers.
Mm-hmm,
but no, it was full house. Obviously, in the context of Russia, and Farage is even on that too. But it's not ubiquitous, and they can't be, like you just explained. There's no way that's going to work.
No, they don't have material.
So Mandelson is being hung out to dry in a big way,
but
then he has hung himself out to dry in a big way in the files. I want to show you, it's a very short clip. This is Sky News' top show with Trevor, what's his name? So British sort of politics morning show. Part of a longer interview with a guy called Lord Glassman. Yes, Jew, but also old Labour Party. Kind of left the Labour Party, tried to start a new one. Little clip from him yesterday morning.
It's not fascist. Labour was straight with the working class. We won the war. Ernest Bevin is a hero. So Labour has to, the government and the Labour Party has to repent and reject New Labour as an alien body that took over the party, and this is where it leads. Perversion and paedophilia.
Lord Glassman, that's strong stuff. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Well, New Labour goes back to Tony Blair.
And Peter Mandelson.
So that's perversion of paedophilia. Well, so he's talking about Mandelson there specifically, yeah. But, I mean, is it only Mandelson he's talking about? That this is where New Labour led, or leads, or has led? So basically, since 1997, when Tony Blair first became Prime Minister of the New Labour Party, that's when paedophilia took off in British politics, and this is where we're at today, 30 almost years later.
Well, it's kind of mirrored in the US with the Clintons being the moment-ish in time where the corruption, who's to say? Some people, we've often said it was 9/11 itself, but you can see, I mean, Hillary Clinton, and the Clinton body count in the 90s and late 80s.
Yeah.
And the seeds of wokery and mass immigration and Epstein visiting 22 times while Clinton was president in the White House.
Mm-hmm. A bit more desperation. This is he's on that topic. This is just a couple of them from Ted Cruz. Thoughts from Ted Cruz, and obviously Ben Shapiro. Little Benny, funny guy. Ted Cruz, if Epstein served any foreign interests, Israel wasn't among them. Just saying. And Ben Shapiro says that Epstein had ties with North Korea. He worked for Russia. Sure. It's fine.
Are they real posts?
Yeah. Yeah, they are.
Deflect.
Israel wasn't among them. If Epstein served any foreign interests, Israel wasn't among them. Those people, both of those people know very well that what they're saying there is false. That's because, some things I allow that, it's just ideology and beliefs, personal beliefs are, will cause people to say stuff like this and they actually believe it. But in this case, I think there's no way that either of these people are doing that sincerely. Let's say that's Ted Cruz is basically run cover for Israel there, obviously, because it's so freaking obvious that Epstein was absolutely serving. Who else was he? Come on, Jesus Christ. It's don't believe the evidence of your eyes and ears, you know what I mean? We're at that point, really, where these people are telling us to deny observable reality.
Yeah.
And I think that's the end game. When they have stuff, when they're saying stuff like that about something of this magnitude, they don't have anything else. These people are in trouble,
Yeah.
If that's where you're at, where you're basically just that there's stuff coming out that you don't want to come out because it's the truth, and your response is don't believe that. Stuff that maps to reality, let's say, very well for most people, and finally, fills in a lot of blanks for people and explains reality, the reality people have been experiencing for a number of years, increasingly. Evidence comes out that fills in that picture for them.
Yeah. And
the response from the political types is, nah, that's not true.
Yeah. Here's
it's not going to work.
I thought this was interesting since it was created in 2007. RT has flirted with conspiracy theory. It's gone over the line sometimes and retracted and so on. It's tried to keep an even keel on all these things, especially when it comes to Israel. Its reporting on Gaza was, oh, Jesus. You know, so. This is unusual because it's presented as, there's no author's name to it, so it's presented as a one of the mill daily reports. Was Epstein a Mossad spy, or did he just look like one? And if you just go through slowly, it's everything we already knew, and then that emerged here in this latest drop. Go on, scroll down there. It mentions the research of Whitney Webb. It's got correspondence between Epstein and Ehud Barak about setting up a meeting with Netanyahu at one point, about Jeffrey Epstein boasting that he represents the Rothschilds and he can make connections with people. The connection with Palantir. Carry on, yeah. Maybe pause here, actually, on that last email.
Did he just look like one? I mean, that...
I know, but
they're asking that question disingenuously, I suppose, right?
Yes.
I presume, I hope.
Because there's no kind of concluding power where they're like, you know, Berenson style, let's be totally impartial. There's actually there's no solid evidence for any of this. They just leave it. They just have all these tidbits and they don't carry on. Actually, go on then slowly to the end. There, subheading: Jewish global control and quote spying. But they're using Jeffrey Epstein's own words in his correspondences. They include the Maria Farmer's testimony where she was abused in Ohio by Wexner and Epstein and others, and how they were talking among themselves about being genetically superior. And their last concluding paragraph, bottom line, the most recent Epstein file release expands the evidentiary terrain surrounding his contacts, methods, and proximity to power. That context sustains the Mossad narrative and encourages a deeper impulse to question more. And in the authors about, they include, and they don't usually do this for their content, by the RT newsroom. So this is kind of an editorial.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying, yes, we should question more, which is obviously RT's slogan or catchphrase. So, yeah, I just thought that was interesting because,
well, you know, if the question is, was Epstein a Mossad spy, or did he Mossad agent, or working for Mossad or whatever, or did he just look like one? My question is, what does an Israeli orchestrated Mossad, Israeli whatever orchestrated blackmailish type compromat collecting operation look like in America? What does that look like? So imagine none of this has ever happened. I said, imagine Mossad and Israel wanted to collect a bunch of information that they could use to have leverage over American society in general, political and social, whatever, academic, business, all that kind of stuff. What does that look like? Just you know, think it out there for me in as a mental exercise. How does it imagine how would you go about it if you wanted to do that? How would you go about it?
I'm
not asking you, but I'm saying
rhetorically, but
yeah.
Rhetorically, what I imagine happened, what has happened is an Israeli startup firm gets a tap on AT&T and Verizon comms, and they basically get a hook in on all comms. It's a kind of NSA style for Israel's version, Unit 8200 or whatever. Um,
Well, that's what happened.
that's what actually, yeah.
That's what actually happened in the original spy network. What was it? Just around 2000, wasn't it? 2000, the year 2000, I think.
The other thing that's in people's heads is that the spy is never usually, or rarely, a flamboyant, high-profile figure. So and so is with the Mossad, but that's always secret. There's
two different
secretive nature.
There's two
of
different
the work.
types. This isn't spy work. This isn't whatever they call it. This isn't black ops. This isn't spy. This isn't Mossad doing. That's not what this is. When we say he likely worked for Israel or the Mossad or whatever, you can use those terms, but it basically is centered around Israel. We don't mean he was a signed up, long-term, embedded member of Mossad, drawing a Mossad pension. Right? That's not what we're talking about. People are using terms loosely, obviously, because of the lack of the type of hardcore evidence that Alex Berenson would like to see, and otherwise it's all nonsense. But we don't need that kind of evidence. Like I said, the people make decisions based on much less evidence, real world decisions based on context, circumstantial evidence, etc. And they make, they vote with their feet on that kind of evidence all the time. So then to demand that evidence, or to say that evidence is no longer good enough in something like this, it's just nonsense. It's hypocritical. It's obtuse. So Epstein was not a Mossad agent. Mossad agents are the guys who engage in espionage or embedded within the US, whatever, working for the Mossad or whichever agency. And the same goes for any other agency. Yes, they're not known. They have fake names. They have fake passports. They're Jason Bournes, let's say, to some extent. Not really like Jason Bourne, but basically. They're completely covert, right? That's been an issue for a long time. Revealing even the names. What do you call her? Journalist woman who was accused of revealing the names of was it over
Valerie Plame?
Yeah, over Libya, right?
Or
was it Libya? Anyway,
Niger, Yellow Cake in Niger.
Exactly, all that stuff. It's so sensitive that you can't even reveal their names, and it's a horrible, and it's a crime. You can go,
and Libby went to jail.
You'll go to prison for just revealing the names of people, let alone their faces or where they live and all that kind of stuff. So obviously that's not what we're talking about here in terms of Epstein. This is an Israeli / Mossad, whatever you want to call it, operation that was meant to be public. To a large extent. I mean, it went on in public, obviously, in the sense that, at least in terms of the A-listers and the political and business and
academic,
whatever, elite, let's say, within everybody, it was all very public. After Jeffrey's name was thrown around left, right, and centre, he was pictured at parties and all that kind of stuff. That's not a spy. That's not a Mossad spy.
Right.
It was a different kind of operation, and like I said, the question that people should ask themselves is, if they want to, is imagine none of this has gone. If the RT article asking, was he working for Mossad, or was he an Israeli spy, or did he just look like one? Well, the question is, imagine none of this had happened, and then posit to yourself the scenario where imagine that Israel, given its history and all that kind of stuff, and its relationship with the US and its the Israeli ethos, let's say, the national mythos. Imagine that the state of Israel, or element within the state of Israel, had decided that they wanted to gain control over as much of the American A-lister, academia, business, political, music industry, whatever, celebrity.
Essentially the
elites.
titans of all Western civilization.
Right. If you wanted to gain control over them and have some kind of leverage over them, what would it look like? How would you go about it? And then consider the Epstein situation and see if it fits. Does it fit? To fulfill that purpose. So you start out with a premise, and that's the real problem. Is like, you're not allowed to posit the premise. The premise is anti-Semitic. The idea that the state of Israel would want to have or gain that level of control over American society in general and politics is in itself perhaps seen as anti-Semitic, because it's, well, they call everything anti-Semitic these days. But anyway, so the premise is anti-Semitic. So you're not allowed to pose that as a premise. But obviously, that's just stupid, as are so many accusations of anti-Semitism these days. So my point is that it fits. What Epstein was doing is one way that you would go about achieving that objective, if that was your objective, if that was your goal. That's clearly what Epstein was doing. Fits very well with achieving that objective.
So running with it, then, what everyone is interested is going through right now is...
It falls apart. It can fall apart. Hold that thought for a second. It falls apart if you deny the premise.
Yeah.
Deny the premise that Israel would ever have any interest in trying to control as much of American society as possible for political, geopolitical, etc. interests, business interests. If you deny that the Israelis have shown any tendency in that respect, and claim it's anti-Semitic just for good measure, if you deny all that, then what Epstein looks just like some, what the official narrative says he is just some naughty guy who had a proclivity for underage or young girls, whatever, and that was it. And he had a few associates that knew him, but he was also, good businessman, whatever. But it's all just vanilla stuff, right? It's all just common or garden stuff. There's other people doing the same thing. He just got caught. But if you allow the premise that Israel would want to achieve that kind of control over the US, then suddenly what Epstein is doing takes on a totally different flavor, or totally different.
So that would extend to what is happening now. So hundreds of thousands of sleuths online are pouring through 3.5 million files, 2.5 million to come possibly. And what they're doing is, it's true in both senses. They're exposing the global elites for what they are.
Mm. For those
the extent of Israel's enmeshment and corruption of said elites. But plugging that into your model, this is serving the long term. This is meant to happen. This is this is not an oopsie, we're all exposed now.
It depends how far you go. You could say that you can try, and they're trying their best. Obviously, people like, what do you call him, Ted Cruz, and different people are trying to remove the Israeli angle, from the Israeli Mossad involved angle. You can do that and still not deny that he was entrenched with, because the Epstein Files are making it very difficult for anyone to deny that he was entrenched or he was big in with American elite. Mm-hmm. American and Jewish, but Jewish American elite, but and that he was just this really guy who was just really driven, really motivated to climb the ladder and get in with people, and he had this particular predatory kind of mindset where he just wanted to be best buddies with everybody, and he just had his own kind of depraved, predatory kind of proclivities and sexual orientation, let's say. And there are a few other people maybe who shared that with him, that he met along the way type thing, and they, bonded. Oh, you like, pedophilia, so do I. We should hang out more, come to my island again, that kind of thing. But other than that, that's it. So it's all kept contained within America, and Epstein just as an American hanging out with Americans, many of whom were Jewish, but it's anti-Semitic to say that they're anything other than Americans, even if they're Jewish, because they're Americans first and foremost, right? None of them are Israel firsters. The only Israel firsters in America are actually Americans who are not Jewish, apparently, like the Christian Zionists. They're the Israel firsters. I mean, there's the ones who are the biggest supporters of Israel are Americans, not Jewish, apparently. And it's anti-Semitic to say that Jews would in any way be American Jews would in any way be Israel first. The whole thing's ridiculous. But anyway, the point being that Epstein, that's one angle to take. The other angle, obviously, the more logical and rational, I think, angle to take is that Epstein obviously certainly was working in the interests of the state of Israel, because most Jewish people, and I hope I can say this without being accused of being antiseptic, most Jewish people, when it comes down to it, their first allegiance is to Israel, or
to each other,
to the Jewish tribe, let's say, and their homeland. When it comes down to it, we talked about this before about how Victor Ostrovsky calling them Zionism, that they can be tapped. Any Jewish person anywhere in the world can be tapped, but that's not, like we said, exclusive to Jews. The CIA can tap any American around the world, in theory. Maybe not quite with such confidence as the Israelis would, but certainly, and the Brits as well, you know,
and the Russians
as well. So
and the Chinese,
right? So the most rational version of this whole Epstein case business is that he was working. It was going on for so long, for decades, 30, 40 years, that certainly he would have been working as an asset of the Israeli government, Israeli intelligence, and that the information he was gathering was used in the service of Israeli interests. And it seems pretty clear that a lot of that evidence was blackmailable, or could be used as blackmail. You have vanilla stuff from financial ties, like we talked about last week, etc., all the way up to more depraved stuff. But that was his job, basically, to go around, ingratiate himself into society. He would have been helped. He would have had money. Obviously, there's a lot of evidence of him receiving money from different places and gaining lots of money in very short order, that kind of stuff. And that, I mean, he's not doing it alone, obviously, because he's working within a clique or a group within American society, particularly politicians and stuff. Like this claim of the extreme claims of satanic ritual and all that kind of stuff don't originate in Israel, or they're not the purview of Israeli Jews or whatever, or American Jews or whatever. It's not a Zionist thing, whatever. There's lots of stuff in European politics.
That giant owl out in the forest of California, Grove, that's wasps.
The Dutroux case in Belgium, all that kind of stuff, you know. So he was in good company, basically, when he set out to do this. And maybe that's why they set out to do it, because look, there's all this evidence that's floating around there. Why doesn't somebody collect it all? You know, why didn't somebody use the fact that we know these people are up to all sorts of nefarious things? Why don't we try and
here's an idea.
Collect it? So yeah,
your Bohemian Grove shit the essence of the conspiracy theory is that it's super old. It's eyes wide shut stuff has always been there. It's enmeshed everywhere, right?
Yep.
Here's the idea. The network / Israel has collected a bunch of stuff on it and is threatening to expose it to a Western audience, thus revolutionary action upwards against their elites. They're holding it over these other elites by saying, "We've got you on this now."
Yeah.
So
they're afraid of the people.
So we need you on Gaza and the Middle East's new design as we see fit.
Greater Israel, whatever.
And global crackdown on, we don't give a shit about your First Amendments and so on. You're going to crack down on speech that we don't like.
Yeah. It all presupposes, like, to make the whole theory to kind of fit, it presupposes that in the short term, that there's going to be stuff that we have intimations of them trying to do it, but to kind of clamp down on expression on public opinion, expression of public opinion, the wrong opinion, let's say, and all sorts of other strictures, basically, that are totalitarian in nature, maybe more wars, all that kind of stuff, more stuff like Israel has been doing in Gaza, that any ordinary person would take a serious stand against. And they want to do all this kind of stuff, and they know that ordinary people would normally take a stand against that, and they would like them not to. Particularly the ones who have the most influence, which is why those are the ones that were targeted by Epstein. So basically, I think what I don't know if we were talking about this last week, but anyway, the idea for me anyway, the only thing that makes sense about the whole Epstein situation and why it's happening now, because ordinarily someone like Epstein would not have ever been in prison, given what we presume is the extent of his contacts and the people that he was probably working for, that these people have a lot of power, and certainly more than enough power to keep him out of prison, to put pressure on the Department of Justice in America, whatever, just to make it go away. There's been plenty of, like you talked about Hillary Clinton's hit list, right? So if you
there's books written on it.
If you subscribe to the idea that Hillary Clinton ordered in one way or another her enemies to be taken out, people to be killed. So Hillary Clinton indirectly killed 56 people, and she has never ever once set foot in a court for that. So we're talking about the same level of power, or a greater level of power, concerning Jeffrey Epstein. And yet he ends up in prison and ends up splashed across the newspapers as this pedo, right? But it happens at a time. The first time was 2007. It was fairly low key, but then he actually went to proper prison, let's say, shortly before his so-called supposed death. So that all happened within a kind of 10-year period or whatever. And the point about that was the only thing that makes sense to me is that once having collected enough information on all these people, gained the confidence of all these people, which is what he did. He went around as a wonderful, friendly guy who was willing to take people to his island and give them his jet and, help them out with their finances and have long talks with them about philosophy and science and all that kind of stuff, and talk to men, women, royals, pop stars, politicians, everybody. He was a really great guy. Everybody loved him. Everybody wanted to hang out with Jeffrey Epstein. He threw great parties. He was a mover and shaker on the social scene, let's say, for these weirdos. So he gains their confidence. He spent a lot of time gaining confidence, and he had whatever, I don't know if it's personality, I don't imagine his personality, but whatever, it appealed to all these people. He ingratiated himself with them, gained their confidence and trust. A lot of them saw him as a good friend, as evidenced by a lot of the emails where they're writing to him. They saw him as a friend, a trusted friend. And of course, when you see someone like that, then you divulge information to them about your private life and all that kind of stuff.
Jeffrey, I'm in Moscow. Listen, I've got a situation. Bill Gates with the hookers.
Right, yeah, exactly. So, Jeffrey, I've got, I need some antibiotics because I've caught an STD from one of your girls. So that implies, obviously he's ingratiated himself, a lot of trust has been built with these people. And then once that trust has been built and he's networked enough in there and not exactly got compromised, but gained the trust of all these people and got their secrets, let's say, as a friend, as a trusted friend, then boom, suddenly he's outed as a sexual predator. And suddenly, all association with him is tarnished for everybody who ever associated with him, because nobody wants to be seen. And you've seen the amount of apologies that have come, or distancing attempts to distance themselves from so many people who are known to be friends with Jeffrey Epstein. So, well, I didn't know about that at the time, and since then, Trump even, I stopped talking to him, and Steve Bannon and all the rest of them. I never talked to him. After I heard about that, and they did. That's the thing. Like, even after he was out in 2007, wasn't it? That he was first accused.
Well, it goes back earlier.
2004, maybe.
The New York Variety.
Well, there was a report on him, but it didn't get any traction. That was the start of the kind of investigation that led
Miami
to him.
Herald investigations.
Right. But it didn't.
But that's the thing. Ordinarily, those things would be killed. Throttled in the cradle in the early 2000s, if it was true or this or that.
Yeah, but essentially it was, to a large extent, you know what I mean? Yeah. Nothing came of it, but so, he's everybody once he was outed initially, and it didn't gain a lot of press or whatever, but it was, it was there. And like in 2007, it wasn't a big thing. It was really only. It was a little bit of,
No, it wasn't as big.
It wasn't a big worldwide kind of thing.
But what he got became scandalous. It did then build from 2007 to 2010 when Andrews first loses the first titles or privileges as a royal. So those years, in fact, what made it scandalous was the leniency.
Yeah.
What I would think is ordinarily it wouldn't even get to a prosecution. There should be no disclosure.
Yeah.
These things are killed in the cradle.
So why would you do it?
So when the act of going through it and then giving him that easy pass is what gave it legs. And then from 2010 until 19, there's victims civil suits, and they're meeting each other for the first time. And then there's bigger and bigger. There is a photo, unredacted, in the files. I don't have it here, but people can find it. I forget his name too, but he has a correspondence with Jeffrey. He's Jewish, New York lawyer. Palsy, how's it going? Meet up on yeah. Innocuous, no nefarious stuff. But this guy joins the team of attorneys representing the victims in the mid 2010s. And in your model where that's to kill the investigation, you think he's joining to subvert it, to protect his friend Jeffrey in Manhattan. But in the other model we're proposing here, he's actually helping facilitate it have legs. He's supporting the victims. He's doing what he's supposed to do as a lawyer. I wish I got it, but hey, there's one email for me that kind of puts a bow on the whole thing. Your ultra conspiracy theorists have been asking this question since July 2019. The why now? Because they know about the strong but circumstantial evidence for past affairs just being killed, Literally, Dutroux had 30 witnesses, police investigators, actual cops who all died tragic deaths around the years of from when the story broke to when it went to trial. By the time it went to trial, it was sanitized, and it was just Dutroux himself, his girlfriend, and this ogre. They called him the ogre, Nihul, who were up for trial. Nihul got off, and he was like boasting in later interviews about what he did. Everyone knew he was a monster, but the official word came down through a court process that he was clean. Anyway, so it came down to lone wolf. And they can do that. They can reduce an entire nationwide, all the aristocracy, the EU, the NATO heads are all meeting and engaged in these sick crimes. They can, if they want, bring it down to a lone wolf. Life in prison. Done. And kill 30 people in the process. If there's one email from me that says it all, it's this one. When I first thought this, I thought I'm reading too much into it, but since we talked and you posited this kind of alternate model of looking at it, I think it's a fit. It's on the face of it, it's innocuous. It's Bannon and Epstein in 2008. Let's check the dates. It's 2018 or 19. It might even be 19, and this a couple of months before he's arrested the second time. From Epstein to Bannon, that's his reply. Let's ignore the reply at the top for a second. Initially, it's from someone called Robert Grunsky to Bannon, who's then forwarding this to Epstein. It's late 2018, December 6th, 2018. There's no context. There's just the subject line is Alex Acosta update from Powerline. I'm not sure what Powerline is. I think it's like a Washington blog, political blogger. Alex Acosta update. This is before Epstein blows up again with his arrest the next summer. So they're just trading notes here. And we'll scroll down. I'll summarize it quickly. It's an article written about the Florida Attorney General in 2007 who gave the sweetheart deal of a year's house arrest to Epstein, even though there were 50 and it was solid. There were 50 victims and he should have been put away for almost life. And he goes back and forth, and he's trying to find out why would Alex Acosta do that? That's crazy. And yeah, he was a serial offender. The case was so strong. That's nuts. So the article is basically a question. Why on earth did the Attorney General of Florida, who by 2018 was Trump's labor secretary at that time when this article was written, how to get away with it? So now you can go back at the top, and Jeffrey's reply to this article from Bannon. Do you know Bill Barr? It's obviously a rhetorical question. He didn't even bother with a question mark.
Mm-hmm.
CIA.
Mm-hmm.
Epstein is telling Bannon, Acosta did that because maybe not Bill Barr per se, but why otherwise drop his name?
Mm-hmm.
Was helping to arrange that back in 2007. What else can we read from this? Bill Barr isn't in the news again yet. He's not even Trump's AG yet. It was that other guy who Trump hated.
Mm-hmm.
That hasn't happened yet in Trump's first term.
Mm-hmm.
After this message was sent in early 2019, Bill Barr, becomes
Attorney General.
Trump's AG. And in July, it's Bill Barr who signs off on the rearrest of Jeffrey Epstein.
Mm-hmm.
And he's arrested coming back from Paris on a plane at
Mm-hmm.
the airport. The guy's obviously flown around perfectly safe till
Right.
now. He had no reason to say, oh, now I'm being arrested again.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Barr. And for me, the reason I say it puts a bow on the whole affair, Epstein's dishing the goods here and gloating as to why Alex Acosta let him off in 2007 is because the CIA protected me.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically says Bill Barr did.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Bill Barr's Wikipedia entry isn't normally, like we said before, a CIA agent. I mean, you never know who's CIA and not. He is on record as having worked in the CIA
Mm-hmm.
in his youth
Mm-hmm.
while he was going through law school.
Mm-hmm.
But in the Wikipedia bio, it's never said he left, but it's implied that he did because he went into law
Of course.
and ended up twice. He was George H.W. Bush's Attorney General as well, actually. This was his second stint.
Mm-hmm.
So Bill Barr then oversees the arrest after, according to Epstein, overseeing the sweetheart deal in 2007. Why? And
Bill Barr
and
was
that's
also
not-
the one who signed off on the convinced everybody that Epstein's autopsy was that he had committed
Yes.
suicide.
so he gets to oversee that process.
Mm-hmm.
And his father is Donald or Ronald Barr,
Mm-hmm. Who was
gave Jeffrey Epstein his first job at
and was in the
this elite school
SAS or the original CIA.
in the 70s, and he himself is known for being the OSS in World War II. There you have an intergenerational thing. That's a US patrician elite family
Until
connected with a guy who's the Israeli side of the same
mm-hmm.
thing. And they're working for each other.
two cheeks of the same arse, as they say.
So now you have to reframe in your mind in this model that Bill Barr he wasn't a good cop pulling in an elite evildoer working for a foreign government against America because Trump MAGA. No, you got to throw all that out.
Yeah, you burn your asset, basically. Your asset is burned for a particular reason. If your asset is burned by someone else, then you can't do anything about it. But if you yourself burn your asset, you're doing it for a particular reason.
Yes.
And they burned Jeffrey Epstein in order to out him or dox him, let's say, as a
pedo.
As a pedophile, whatever. With that, that's generally understood. That's what people are taking away from it. And then he's someone that you wouldn't touch with a 10-foot barge pole. But the problem is everybody had been touching him. You know what I mean? All these elites, these very boring elite, had this fun guy, Jeffrey Epstein, to come in and shake up their lives and make it all interesting, especially like people like Bill Gates and stuff.
By the way, Russiagate had just wound down. Mueller's investigation had just terminated and found the president guilty of nothing.
Right.
And then comes along Epstein Gate.
Right. So the point is to paint, instead of you have all this information on all these different people and how to best use it, well, the best way to use it is to use it all at once, let's say. You're not blackmailing them all. You're not sending them letters saying, here's a picture I have of you doing whatever. I'm going to send it to the press unless you do A, B, or C for me. They don't need that from people. What they need is compliance from these people. all these people that Jeffrey Epstein collected information on essentially and got into their confidence. He didn't need anything from them in particular right now, and any particular, maybe here and there you could put, but it's collecting information to pull in, at the very most, pull in favors at a later time. That's what blackmail is for, right? Like, unless you need it immediately, or unless you want to actually destroy the person, then you find the blackmail, you set them up, you get the blackmail, and immediately you send it to the press, and they go to prison, and you're happy because you wanted to destroy that person. You didn't want to destroy any of these people. You wanted to acquire, through ingratiating himself into their, getting into their confidence and trust and all that kind of stuff. He wanted compliance from them. He wanted other people running Jeffrey Epstein, wanted all these people to be good little doggies.
The favor was your silence.
Yeah, and
for now, this time.
Yeah, and the way you do that is by doing, plausibly, the way you can do that is by doing what they did, which is have them all associated with Jeffrey Epstein, then out him as a predator, have them all, oh my God, I have to backtrack here, I gotta keep my head down. If I have to, I'll issue an apology for even talking to him, or I didn't know, mea culpa, I'm sorry, or I'll just not say anything if the spotlight doesn't shine on me. But we all know that we all hung out with Epstein, and there's the problem is, at the very least for all of us who may be relatively innocent, there's guilt by association, right? But for a lot of them, I'd say maybe more than people think, there is stuff that could be used to seriously damage their reputations, and even put them in legal trouble. So all those people now that since Epstein was outed, are all on notice, basically, that they can be trashed, basically. So it's no one saying it to them. They all know. That's the genius of the whole thing. The genius of the whole thing is that no one sent any of those people, and you're probably talking about thousands and thousands of people. Nobody sent them an email warning them, but they all got warned.
Yeah.
Without anybody sending anything to them. All they had to do, the people running Epstein, was to out Epstein, and then all of them get this blanket warning, basically.
They get the message.
They get the message. They're put on notice, basically, without anybody threatening them. And they don't know who's threatening them, but they know what they did. They know what association they had with Epstein, etc., and they know the extent to which they might be implicated if anybody ever decided to shine a spotlight on them. And they don't know who they're dealing with, basically. All they knew, most of them, that they were dealing with Epstein. They don't know who's above him. Now they know there's probably someone above him, and they know they're in danger, and they better just keep their goddamn heads down. And in addition to that, people, it's always seemed strange to me since, especially in the recent revelation, but since the Epstein documents have been released under Trump, why no one is questioning why the only person who was actually dragged into the only member of that cadre of quote unquote elite that got raked over the coals and had his reputation destroyed, and really got it, short of being prosecuted, which technically
which are calls for
why
now,
he shouldn't be. No reason why he shouldn't be, but certainly in terms of having his whole life ruined, was Prince Andrew. Why only one person? Why him? Was he just expendable? What was the point? Why pick on him? He's just one of a long list of people you could line up, all who hung out with Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, and probably availed themselves of the same services that Prince Andrew availed himself of, many of them. Well, that's illegal or not.
That his uncle did, that
right.
we know of, and the only reason he came to an end was because the IRA put it to him.
Exactly.
There was no
so
official.
The question is, why Prince Andrew and nobody else? Well, Prince Andrew serves as an example. Yeah. Do Andrew, just to drive the point home, after all these people have been put on notice because Epstein has been outed, now we're going to show what can be done to them. But again, without threatening them directly or anything like that, just make them afraid and show them what happens. Here's a prince, the Prince of England, the Queen's son, the Queen of England, the venerable Queen of England's son has just had his entire life ruined, let's say, because of this Epstein affair. And all people just immediately think about, that could be me. So I'm compliant. What do you want me to do? I'm keeping my head down. I'm going away. I'm not going to say anything about anything that, whatever the dominant narrative is within the government or the amongst the elite in terms of what they what they do, the movers and shakers on the planet, basically, who are doing various different things, whatever they want to do, then I'm not going to say anything about it.
There's an added bonus to it.
Maybe I'll be forced to kind of praise it.
He's a royal.
Yeah.
So you further demoralize,
Right.
not but here specifically the Brits, but that extends to, I mean, British monarchy is formerly the head of the entire Anglosphere. Or much of it.
Exactly. The British monarchy is the only monarchy
You demoralize
left.
ordinary people.
It's the only monarchy left.
I don't like these. They're all sick.
Yeah. The British monarchy was the only monarchy, certainly in Europe and elsewhere around the world, it's the only monarchy left in the world, literally, that had that kind of prestige. The kind of prestige of old that the royals had, kind of like ordained by God and seen as
Right to rule.
legitimately
Right to rule.
better.
Divine, that's the key part.
Yeah.
Divine right to rule.
Yeah. And demoralizing, taking that away, trashing the royal family to some extent, the image of the royal family. It's a demoralization of at least of the people who, and a lot of people, as much as there might be quite a few British people, English people who would, if you ask them, would say that they don't like the royals or whatever, blah blah blah. They, it is a British institution basically, and
if they didn't, Britain would long since have been a republic.
Yeah, and most of them recognize.
They didn't.
Most of them recognize that. Most English people recognize that the royal family actually is more of a benefit to the UK than it's a problem. You know what I mean? It's only on some political ideology that you would really have any kind of just some socialist ideology or something like that, or anarchist ideology that you'd have
Even
any
the
problem
socialists in the UK, Labour has always been staunchly.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's basically what was going on.
I was thinking Epstein-Barr. I was like, where have I heard that before?
Epstein-Barr virus.
There's the Epstein-Barr virus, which was identified in the 60s. It's a curious thing. It's endemic. Basically, 95% of adults are exposed to it now. It's like one of the herpes viruses. So it's endemic. But it is super associated with numerous... It's oncogenic, which means it's cancer-causing. Multiple sclerosis is probably the cause of that when it's cross-activated with other things. Around about this time, COVID probably in conjunction with Epstein-Barr virus took effect on the population in a big way. The universe maybe has its way of...
For anybody who uses Twitter and is interested in this kind of situation, there's a lot of commentary on Twitter, obviously, on this, and a lot of it, like the example from Alex Berenson, but there's many others. Sometimes you can tell from their names, but maybe you don't pay much attention to their names. But you'll see on Twitter a lot of commentary on this, and a lot of it is in the context of y'all are taking this too seriously. Y'all are diving too deep into this. You all are not recognizing that there's no real evidence for what you think actually went on here, and it's not that bad. It's just this thing that happened, and it's moral panic, that kind of thing. And I'd say probably 8 times out of 10, the person writing that is Jewish. Just saying. And that's not strange because I've seen it multiple times, and I always go and I look at their name.
Yeah.
And then I just search on their name, and 8 times out of 10 they're Jewish, which is not unusual, right? Because, like I said, Jewish people, Jewish influencers or whatever with high-level accounts or lots of people following them on X are all feeling this as a potential problem for at least quote-unquote anti-Semitism, let's say, or for growing anti-Semitism. So they have vested interest in it. They've skin in the game, these people. So I think, and they're all motivated to tamp it down a little bit, and they're using their Jewish brains to come up with narratives as to why there isn't much to see here, people, and please all calm down. And what they're not admitting is that, like, the disclaimer on all of their posts should be kind of conflict of interest. I'm Jewish here, and obviously this can have direct implications. This Epstein business, given that Epstein's Jewish and that he probably worked for the Israeli Mossad, or the fact that you're saying he worked for the Israeli Mossad and that the Israelis were behind this, etc., i.e. / the Jews were behind this / I'm Jewish, so I don't want to see that happen. So here's my watery down narrative to help you get over it. And I'm not saying you shouldn't read them, or whatever. I'm just saying understand it that there's a conflict of interest there. However eloquently they may put forward a certain narrative or reasons why you should drop the Epstein thing. It's not objective. Whereas ours obviously is.
This isn't going to work in the long run. This is going where it's going.
Well, the problem is
there's no way this silence lasts forever.
Yeah. Well, it's really, really interesting because, like you say, it's not going to last forever, or that's not going to work. That kind of attempt to tamp down the anti-Israel or suspicion about Israelis or Jews, whatever it is, that's not going to work. And yeah, it won't work if the evidence keeps pointing to that, and it is, and people aren't stupid, sure, they may take things a bit too far sometimes, but generally speaking, the fact that over the past number of years, a lot of people on social media in particular have been questioning more about the Israeli influence over American politics is by and large, evidence that that's what's actually happening. People en masse like that aren't wrong, you know what I mean? Lots of people would try and tell you that it's wrong, that it's moral panic and social contagion and the madness of crowds and blah, 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 but that's not really what's going on, because that's only what's going on when there really isn't any evidence for it. But clearly there is evidence for it. There's hardcore evidence for an overweening Israeli influence on American politics and Western and global politics. So when people express that, well, sorry, but that's just what is, and it's nobody's fault but the people who have been doing it. I mean, if you keep doing something like that is nefarious, if you keep involving yourself in the politics of other countries and global politics in a way that is seen as negative and is negative objectively, then you can't blame anybody for when they draw the obvious conclusion that you're a problem, if they track it back to you because the evidence points there.
This is
and the only thing they have in that respect, and that's why it's weird, but the only thing they have is 80 years ago, the Holocaust, when everybody rounded on the Jews, quote unquote, right? The Nazis, everyone, and the whole world to some extent, but anyway, the Nazis in particular, the Goys, whatever, went after the Jews just out of just pure, unfettered Goyishness that just leads them to go after the Jews every once in a while, is a really interesting historical precedent. I mean, to have established 80 years ago that has endured for so long that it now can be used to try and dismiss any criticism of Israel / Judaica, despite the fact that the evidence points to there being something there, that there's no smoke without fire, that there's something really going on and that people need to pay attention, that people are paying attention to, and that is a problem. And they can pull on something from 80 years ago, a narrative that has continued strangely from
the biggest flaw
80 years ago.
The biggest flaw for me in our alternative model is that this has burned Jews as well, / Israel. This act of actually bringing Epstein's crimes to light, of tarnishing everyone by association. We're all going down together, right?
Not going down, no. They're all protected.
Well, we're all at risk of it, so
yeah, but that's all that needs.
Is this like a Samson option where, because the actual story of Samson is that he, the Jewish hero, pulls the temple on himself. He dies in the process. So it's the Samson option because Israel is also burned by it. So here's where, that's the only problem with this. This isn't like a clean getaway for Israel. But that's where I'm thinking, ultimately, this isn't about the tribe. The tribe itself is being used and wielded. And and weaponized.
Well, they always have been.
So when you've got Bill Barr doing his part, that's not Bill Barr because he's been co-opted over here.
No, not Bill Barr, no.
He's doing it because that's the indigenous elite interest as well. Orders are coming down internally within the US. So,
well, who are they burning, really?
Well, Israel gets burned by this as well. That's all I'm saying. That it's obviously what we suggested is that it's to buy or induce complicity and silence while Israel commits.
Because there's already a problem. Do you know what I mean? But those people are fundamentally stupid. You know what I mean? They're like really, they're on a path that goes nowhere. Like there's no good ending to what they're trying to do, but they keep trying to do it. You know, they double down on a really bad idea over and over again. You know, because they apparently don't have it within them to change or to see the light because they're just inveterate freaking psycho nutbags or whatever. And that's it. That's the way it is. They're just genetically wired like that. So when you engage in the kind of criminality and kind of deviant psychopathic behavior, and that's all you can do, and you know that, you know, as things progress, you tend to increase yourself and you tend to do more and more and more and more. What your options become more increasingly limited in how to deal with it. You know what I mean? If you're not going to just like kind of like, I don't know, institute some kind of totalitarian society where everybody gets locked up in prisons and, you know, a concentration camp for everybody, basically FEMA camps for everybody, you know, that'll stop them. If you're not going to go there, but you're still going to try and manage the whole thing and pretend while you're committing these egregious crimes and stuff, and that you're going to try and keep up the facade of being a freedom and truth-loving democratic society. It's like there's all sorts of mental gymnastics you're going to have to engage in to make that work. You know what I mean? It's just because the two are completely opposed, you know, and the cracks are going to show increasingly. You know what I mean? You can't have both at the same time. Yeah. You can't be a bunch of satanic pedophile type people engaging in that kind of activity and at the same time have everybody convinced that you're paragon to virtue. I mean, the two are extremely opposed. You know, so causing more flack against Israel to the extent that people are pointing the finger at Israel. You know, Epstein being associated with Israeli Mossad or whatever. Yeah, but it's the lesser of two evils. You have to do something, right? You're forced into situations where you can't avoid that, but you minimize the risk to yourself, and you figure, well, remember the point of all this was to gain control and compliance from the elites, and particularly ones who would have a voice that people would listen to. In a certain sense, you don't care what the plebes think because you think that you can tell them what to think via the celebrities, right? Yeah. The important intellectual and celebrity type people, they're the ones that people listen to for, you know, what to think and what to believe. So as long as you have control, the best you can achieve is to have control over those people. You need to have control over those people, and I think that's what this was about, having control over those people. And the plebs can scrabble around in the mud all they want and shout about this and that and the other, and because we've got a solution for that as well. We've got hate speech laws, you know. We can impose hate speech laws on those people and threaten them as well with prison. You know, we'll threaten the elites with exposing their financial irregularities or their sexual irregularities or their sexual perversions, and for the ordinary people who we don't have that control over, we'll threaten them with, if you open your mouth, we'll put you in prison. So everybody shut your mouth, basically. Everybody needs to shut their mouths and just let us do what we want to do. That seems to be the line of force.
Yeah.
And
it won't last forever.
And just on the Epstein thing, there's a kind of inconsistency as well in this framework. First of all, with him actually going to prison, which is why I suspect that he was actually prosecuted on purpose in order to achieve this goal of guilt by association and sending a chilling effect amongst all the people who are associated with him. And so that was the first kind of prerequisite for that. But so in the same way, there's an inconsistency with someone in Epstein's position and the people who were running him, essentially, and the power and control they have. There's an inconsistency with him actually being exposed just by natural means, let's say, because like you were saying, it should have been just covered up if that's what they wanted. So if it wasn't covered up, that they wanted that to happen, they wanted him outed. There's also a problem with him actually going to prison on his second stint in prison, where he actually went to actual prison in New York, New Jersey, New York, whatever.
New York.
Because he could have been kept out of that one as well, and that was an actual prison, because the previous prison he was under house arrest for 1 year, wasn't in prison at all. So, but this time he actually went to prison. But the point of that is that he should have been easily kept out of prison then as well, but he wasn't. And it seems the most likely explanation for why that happened was to basically to fake his death, to make him disappear. So he had contributed enough to the cause that he was worth saving. So get him into prison, get him out of there, because otherwise it's more difficult. Apparently, it seems like it was easier to do that in prison, right?
You control the environment.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got your man overseeing it from
right.
White House counsel,
right?
Bill Barr,
right? It's all overseen from that respect. It's in a controlled environment. So,
is Trump in the loop? Who knows?
Yeah, certainly the people who were able to get him. This is reversing it a little bit. The people who were able to get him out of prison, out of a high security prison, and replace him with a John Doe lookalike, have, and then Bill Barr signing off on an autopsy that he hung himself and all that kind of stuff. People who are able to do that, again, shows a level of control and power. It's pretty. It's on the level of Hillary Clinton supposedly killing 56 people, or indirectly killing 56 people, and her never setting a foot in court over it. It speaks to a level of power and control over a lot of things, like to be able to get into a prison system. I mean, what happened to the guards that night? They all just told to look the other way or whatever. There's one.
There's a new video. Was it found in the files?
Yeah.
The fact that they allowed that, I mean, they could have deleted that file.
Yeah.
There's the sleuths like cracking the PDFs and the attachments and being able to remove the black redacted parts.
Right.
And some of them are commenting. I saw one saying, this is ridiculously easy. It's like they want us to be able to see the stuff,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's just thinking aloud, but...
Yeah. So basically, again, in this context, Epstein didn't kill himself. Not only did he not kill himself, he didn't extract himself from prison. He obviously had high-level help. The kind of help or power and influence where somebody can go into a high-level prison, get the videotape, and extract 1 minute from it. Obviously, the 1 minute when somebody was taken in and he was taken out, and spurred it away to some tunnel somewhere. Those people with that level of power and control obviously have the power and control to prevent him from ever going to prison.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it takes way more power and influence to
put him in prison.
No, to get him out of prison.
Yeah.
Than it is to put him in prison.
With
than it is to stop him from going to prison in the first place.
Yeah.
It's bribing a few judges, having a warden year, a few compliant judges, whatever, and he gets, or in the Department of Justice, whatever. That's all just talking to people. This is like a freaking black op going into a prison at night, and I mean, again, it's kind of boggles my mind how you actually do that, how you get away with that. Do you just tell all the guards to take the night off You know what I mean? Because you're dragging a stiff in there, basically. You know what I mean? Putting it in his cell, and then taking him out. And you get to access the video as well and delete 1 minute of the video when it happened. And nobody says a word. Nobody speaks. Nobody says a word. Nobody questions it. And Bill Barr, the Attorney General, says, "Yep, evidence of the autopsy said," despite the fact that one of the coroners who actually did the autopsy said, "Yeah, his injuries are not consistent with having hung himself."
And they never did found the noose.
No,
there was nothing there that could have served as a noose.
Right. So the whole thing kind of stinks, and it's very hard for the average person to plumb its depth or whatever, or, you know. But it obviously is a fairly pervasive and high-level power and influence structure that, you know, has pretty much absolute power to do whatever it wants, you know.
And it's intergenerational.
Right.
It's as old as the hills. Ultimately, that's where it's going, and that's where we read of. But the people who are new to this stuff, they're what's generating the interest and the excitement, the activism to research and report about it.
Yeah,
because they maybe have heard about this before and gone, Rothschilds and the Illuminati families, come on, will you? But those of us who've
back in the day,
been seated with this for a long time.
Yeah, but it's even difficult for us, you know what I mean? Because it's, for all the years that we've been, you know, looking into various different types of skullduggery and what's really going on behind the scenes in politics and the nature of people in politics, it was all still theoretical. You know what I mean? As much as we would collect evidence to make a convincing argument that this was what was actually happening, there was still a sense that it was still theoretical. We didn't have that hard evidence. You know what I mean? And most people, you know, there was no admissions. There was no day in court. There was no admissions from on high. Okay, you caught us. You know, fair cop. It lacked an actual reality. But the problem with this now is that it's giving it more of an actual reality. You know, these Epstein Files, and maybe it's the fact that a lot of people are paying attention to it as well that's bolstering that reality. So it is kind of like weird, at least for me anyway. It's not the same, and it's not gratifying. It's weird, like, you know. It's mainly not gratifying because there's nobody going to prison for it. Like there's no, the power structure is intact, and in fact, the kind of thing we're proposing here is that it's the power structure that actually orchestrated all of this. You know, not that it's all fake or false, because there is truth coming out as a result of it, but it's an unsatisfactory truth because it's a truth that's being dumped in your lap, but there's a message with that truth that says you can't do anything about this. This is actually happening and you can't do anything about it. And there's no accountability, and it doesn't matter how much you scream and shout about it, we still hold the reins.
Yes. But the Ron Suskind quote from Karl Rove came to mind for me this week. And all of you, will be left to study what we do. There's enough material here to keep everyone occupied for years, while the perps go, okay, now you know who we are, what we do, so get used to it. Don't think it's going to happen. Nothing's going to change. This is how we are. That's how you are.
Yeah.
And that's how it'll play out.
Yeah.
That's what they're betting on, maybe.
That's the betting on.
But
in terms of how it happened with Epstein, this again, I don't know where this was posted, but it's from around the time it was the day after, I think, he was actually supposedly committed suicide. A prison guard supposedly posted this on I don't know which chat room or whatever it was, but he said, "Not saying anything after this, please do not try to dox me, but last night after 4:15 count, they took him medical in a wheelchair, front cuffed, but not one triage nurse says they spoke to him. Next thing we know, a trip van shows up. We do not do releases on the weekends unless the judge orders it. Next thing we know, he's put in a single man cell and hangs himself." Here's the thing, the trip van did not sign in and we did not record the plate number, and a guy in a green dress military outfit was in the back of the van, according to the tour guy who let him through the gate. You guys, I'm shaking right now, but I think they switched him out.
Yeah. So presumably that's written by someone, a guard or someone who works there at the prison. Yeah. Believable. But he'd be someone he's literally shaking right now because he'd be affected by the discrepancy of right and wrong here, just by the rules and also by the morality of it. But in a prison, you also get people who are the guards who are they're crooks. They're junior crooks, they're wheeling and dealing all the time at their level anyway. So when they see a bigger boss or a bigger gangster, they know how to roll over like
for sure,
a smaller dog to a bigger predator.
Yeah, for sure. That's underestimated. Like people, it's the old 9/11 thing, 9/11 conspiracy theories can't be true because so many people would have talked, but that just is that exposes an ignorance of human psychology, And people tend to not speak up rather than speak up,
Yeah.
Another question I have is this idea of pizza and all the reference to pizza and grape soda. Want to get some pizza and grape soda. People are saying that to Epstein and stuff, Obviously Pizzagate.
Yeah, 1800 reference to pizza.
Yeah.
380 reference to beef jerky.
Yeah. So if there's so many 1800 references to pizza, if there's if it's such a common reference by these people, by Epstein, for example, people to Epstein, people associated with Epstein, talking about pizza, and obviously people would say, well, that's just pizza, right? Why is there not a lot of, at least a few pictures of them eating pizza? If it's just pizza, why? Surely, if they love pizza so much, why is there not a lot of pictures of them eating pizza? Of all the pictures of Epstein with his friends at tables, in rooms, why isn't there pizza boxes strewed around the place? At least one pizza box. Surely there would be one pizza box. If the guy was obsessed with pizza, him and his friends all loved pizza. It's such a rare delicacy anyway, you know what I mean? I mean, it's kind of thing the elite would really go for. It's up there with like, gold-plated caviar, right? Pizza.
They're not eating pizza. They're all health nuts. And they want to live forever.
Yeah.
And they take supplements up the wazoo. They weren't eating pizza. So that gives Pizzagate legs because it's code. I think I think some of them might have been mundane references, but so other cases where no. It's not pizza. It's not the way they're talking about the pizza. And who emails? What grown man emails another to say, oh my God, that pizza? You don't.
No, because it's just pizza, right?
I don't think he was a mastermind of that kind of level of stuff. I don't know what happened here, but the woman who received most from his will, his last will, his will was changed 2 days before he was Epsteined, switched, was a dentist, actually. She was a trained dentist from Belarus, which is another reference that comes up hundreds or even thousands of times. Dentistry. These people went to the dentist once a month. There was a dentist office in his house on the island. I think that's also code for something. Obsession with dentistry. Anyway, this woman, Karina Shuliak, Belarusian, 30-something by the time he died. So she claims she was his last girlfriend. She got the most from the will, 100 million plus the island. I don't think it was bequeathed to her because of the trust issue and the investigation and stuff. Formally, in the will, he bequeathed the island to her. She was an actual dentist, though. Anyway, she popped up on X a few days ago, but you can't find her account now. It's gone. But people have screenshotted her last messages from a few days ago. But she's, as you'd expect in a Stockholm syndrome type situation, she's defending Jeff. He wasn't the monster you're making him out to be. He wasn't doing the really sick stuff. He knew people who were.
Well, that fits
the
with
child sacrifice and killings. That was other people higher up. And then Hurricane's
that could be the case, because that would be in line with an asset or an operative like Jeffrey Epstein, who's tasked with collecting information, gaining the confidence and trust of individuals, and then...
But also looking after girls. So many of the emails are about, making sure the girls are all keeping their appointments.
Yeah, exactly.
To the dentist.
Right. So...
And urologists.
Right.
Sometimes they express it. And gynecologists.
Right, but it's in keeping with him keeping himself relatively clean.
Yes.
And
he's more like a Dutroux. Dutroux was managing the girls.
Right.
Kidnapping them, but also moving them around. Notoriously, he starved a couple to death. But in general, he would actually feed and clothe and move and look after. Because he always said, I was just a runner I was taking them to the castles and the underground tunnels. But Epstein's kind of like that.
For sure.
But not. He also had an island himself. He was also rich
in
his own right. But then that isn't credible either, because we know that he owned the single most expensive property on the continental United States, which was number whatever it was in Manhattan. It wasn't his mansion. Illegally it was, but it was sold to him by Les Braxton for $1.
Yeah.
So he, in a sense, he had nothing. It was all at the behest of something else, and it's just something else we think has burned him, sold him out.
Except not really. That was his job. His job was to be not as a patsy, but obviously he was. If it's true that and I think it's very likely true that he's still alive, he was. That shows a significant amount of kind of respect for him. Let's say that his bosses had to actually get him out of prison. That wasn't a simple thing.
What if they had to, because he had the goods? And and if they killed him, it would have been published. Dead Man Switch.
Possible.
And I don't mean the Epstein Files.
No.
I mean the actual gold back in the vault.
Yeah.
The
real stuff, yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's got to be possible.
Here's another snippet on how real power works. We know from Ghislaine Maxwell's trial that when the FBI raided not all of Epstein properties, they didn't even touch the Zorro Ranch in New Mexico, which is arguably the biggest one. Anyway, they took what they wanted, had to, whatever was on their list, and left a request with Epstein's trust or estate managers that they please send on all the videos and the DVDs from those cameras that were all about. Can you forward them to our office? I mean, that's on record that's what happened, which means it didn't happen, or it's covering up for the way it actually happened. So that's the gold. That's the who's holding that?
Deep state.
All we're seeing is the leverage fiat currency, the Epstein Files. That's the fiat currency that's backed by the power of the gold that's in the vaults.
Right.
And these places are always, in the 90s, in the Dutroux case, the girls all had testimony. Yeah, the place was full of cameras. In the 90s.
Yeah. It was primarily a Goy operation. Goy bait operation to get all the non-Jewish billionaires and influential people, as much as they can. I mean, they try. They don't know, but they know that at the top there's all sorts of debauchery and depravity going on amongst those elite types, because the kind of people they're rampant narcissists, basically the vast majority of them. So it's highly likely that they're all you're going to be able to induce them or encourage them or offer them things that ultimately you can use against them. It's not going to be that hard. There's going to be obviously some that will stick to their guns and have a bit of integrity, but your chances are, it's a good bet, basically. As starting out, it's a good bet that you're going to have quite a lot of success with that kind of an operation because of the nature of the people that you're targeting.
Yeah. You've seen, I think you reposted this, you've seen the photo of the Zuck and Musk at dinner with Epstein in 2015. Musk has said that never happened. And now some nerd has cracked the attachment, and we see the photo. Sent by Epstein to himself, just so he had a record of it. And you definitely see Mark Zuckerberg in the image, plus Elon Musk. This was Musk's official line is that dinner didn't happen, but the photo is definitely from Epstein, and he's there. I've mentioned elsewhere that nerds are cracking software. I think that image was cracked thanks to someone being able to figure it out. Others are finding the actual passwords in the files to some of his accounts and then going and reading. I mean, how do they overlook that? But again, it's 3 million. Maybe there's too much to do, and they're frantically trying to backpedal and take care of that stuff. God Almighty. You've seen the one with his early interest in transing kids, 2011. That's an interesting one because the guy he's communicating with is a man named Robert Trevers. He's an octogenarian, like he's long retired, but he was a major multi-book, multi-paper publishing evolutionary biologist. He's the one talking excitedly about how transgender is the future and stuff. It's really a lid on. It's lifting the lid on liberalism, a liberal world order. Wokery and everything, and where it comes from. It's non-partisan. It comes from the top. Anywho, we can come back to it if there's other stuff, but just topically, this is unrelated as far as I know. In Australia this week, 2 pedophile scandals. The same week, Sydney, unrelated. One of them is about a top Sydney lawyer was arrested coming back from Cambodia. I mean, that's been known for years as sex tourism in Southeast Asia. But the other one's more interesting. It's ongoing. Let's send this to Scotty. 6 Sydney man arrested over alleged satanic paedophile ring. Now, that's an alternative media's headline. But additionally, 145 foreign suspects reported. Who's calling it a satanic one? Probably that's their conjecture. But one of the people arrested over the past 4 weeks in Sydney is an actual cop. That's him there on the right.
Yeah.
Another member that's been arrested is like a journalist, a sports coach, and so on. This stuff goes on all the time. I mean,
yeah, part of the problem is that it's not just that, it's not just the elites, let's say. This is something that, as with the ponerological infection, like from above type thing, or just the nature of certain people, that there's certainly a lot of people on this planet who are of that that nature. You could get into it and try and understand why it's happening. But satanic pedophile network, I mean, pedophilia is one thing, but satanic pedophilia, that's another level, because there's a kind of a, not that it excuses it obviously, but straight up, let's say common or garden pedophilia, is often explained or not justified, but explained as a result of intergenerational. Basically, it's a result of the adult paedophile having been abused himself as a child, so it's carried on from generation to generation, and it's basically a psychological illness, basically, or that's a result of their own abuse as children, their own trauma as children. And that's, that there is maybe a distinction in a certain sense to be made there in those cases compared to people who engage in other activities around or do it for other reasons, and it becomes quote unquote satanic. And also of people like politicians or elite type people, rich people, people with wealth and power who have never been abused themselves as children, but who end up abusing children. That's a different category. So a lot of different nuances to it, I suppose. But obviously, it's all to be condemned. But some of it is maybe more understandable, like the intergenerational aspect of it, and to be seen as an actual, illness, or compared to just pure predatory behavior by individuals, who do it because they enjoy it. Let's say, I mean, it's obviously very complicated. But anyway, I'm just mentioning that distinction. And I think when we're talking about elite paedophile rings and people, particularly people in positions of power, who do it because it seems to be associated with power, it's a unreasonable or irrational extension of the power that they already have, that leads them into, they're tired with the kind of common or garden variety of power, let's say, of wealth and influence and that kind of stuff. And for them, in their messed up minds, it's victimizing other people, victimizing children, the most innocent people, human beings, is a way to feel more powerful somehow, which is bizarre because I think
that's true, and I think there are others who seek power and wealth in order to do this. I think it's their first currency. That's how they can actually socially climb. Because that,
I mean, if there's one thing that defines, like, is almost an archetypal definition of or description or image of human beings, would be children. You know what I mean? Of the ideal human being would be a child. The innocence of a child and all that kind of stuff. So if you have a drive or motivation to defile and destroy and destroy that, then it comes down to a kind of like a hatred of humanity in a certain sense. You know what I mean? It's a hatred of human beings. It's a hatred of life, of everything that's good and positive about life. So there you're talking about, you go past any kind of potential excuse of mental illness or prior trauma, and it's pure predatorial behavior. It's like a intraspecies predator, basically. You know what I mean? That just that wants to. And it's not even the term predator, evokes the ideas of the animal kingdom and stuff, but animals don't do that, you know what I mean? So it's beyond that as well. It's conscious, deliberate destruction of or desire to destroy and defile life and the innocence of life, just because that's what you want to do, because that's how that makes you happy, let's say, or that you get something from doing that. You don't get anything that you need, but you get something bizarre. Anyway, you don't. I mean, who wants to go down that path? Who wants to even? You don't even want to try and figure that shit out. Like, I mean,
well, the old school Catholics understood this as children of light versus children of darkness. Netanyahu has since used that in his own perverted,
right,
to suit his own needs. Recently,
yeah.
But I remember when COVID shit started. he's now excommunicated, but he was still then senior cardinal. Vittorio, was it Vittorio? I forget his name. He penned a letter, I think, to the then Pope. It was published everywhere. He says, "What's happening now is you're seeing," and maybe he was a bit precipitate that it was beginning of the apocalypse, the unveiling, in the sense of that word, and it would reveal other children of light and children of darkness. Two distinct modes of being, or if not species, peoples. Yeah, when I was listening to Candace Owens and that French guy talk about the stuff behind and connected to the Macrons, I mean, he cited countless examples where it's there in black and white in the fashion magazines in Paris, but what they do to their own kids, pimp them out to each other's families, and sometimes it's scandalous. So the child may grow up to realize, maybe knew that it was wrong at the time, and then grows up and exposes daddy, who's now a minister or a billionaire or whatever, and it creates a bit of a ruffle in France, but it's papered over. But there are countless examples like that. This milieu is alien to us, and vice versa. I mean, you saw the clip of Lady Harvey, kind of an it girl, an aristocratic. She would have been, if their life paths had been different, she and Ghislaine would have been buddies, traveling the world, jet setting. And she said it on TV or on LBC radio this week, where
if you're not mentioning the Epstein Files, it's kind of like
then it's a dishonor because you're a nobody. Everyone who's anyone was there. What's wrong with you people? And the interviewer was clever. He just was on. But then when it's cut, he looks at the camera and is like,
Well, she is a crazy person in a certain sense, but I mean that.
But she articulates what
they all,
mindset.
Probably what most of them think. Well, certainly most of them do. A lot of them do think that, because if you look at the emails in the Epstein Files from people, they obviously thought Epstein was the bee's knees. He was awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So her saying that, even though she's a bit crazy, her saying that does seem to be representative of the feelings of a lot of these people towards Epstein. They all love him, obviously not just women, like all the men and all were just clamoring to get to come a little visit to his island, and he throws greatest parties and all that kind of stuff. And it's probably because those elite, it's funny that they're called the elite, because they're probably one of the most boring people on the planet. Like, that's why someone like Epstein, who wasn't, in a certain sense, one of them, he wasn't like this dour Bill Gates kind of like nerdy.
Oh, he was exciting.
Yeah. To them, he was an exciting kind of person. You know what I mean? So he was very different in that sense, because most of them are they're all very wealthy, but they're all painfully boring.
Yeah.
And so for him to come in as a billionaire but be just this rare breed, who could give us a bit of what life is like for the hoi polloi, you know what I mean, down there, the way they have parties and stuff, give us a break from our difficult jobs of ruling the world type thing, yeah. Anyway,
did you see that the mother of the NBC anchor Samantha Guthrie has been kidnapped?
Yeah, I see it in the news past while. That. And it's only, I mean,
she's in her 80s.
My first thought was, that's kind of weird, but also that the only reason, okay, so basically, has she been kidnapped? Have they had any kind of from what I gleaned from it, the woman had just disappeared, and they were all deciding that she had been kidnapped. At least initially, I didn't see any evidence of that she had actually been kidnapped, just that she had gone missing. And then it was, okay, so an old woman has gone missing. Pretty sure that happens relatively often in a country the size of the US, and the only reason this is being talked about is because it's the mother of the anchor, an NBC anchor.
BBC News yesterday evening, Samantha Guthrie's published a video that's being shared online. She's stopped working, I suppose, for now. In the video, she's talking to no one in particular, but she says, "We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us." So I think
it's news because
it's a kidnapping.
Someone is a ransom basically for somebody trying to get money. Yeah, weird.
So why her? Well, she has reported in the past on Epstein updates, but then a bunch of them have. I wonder what's so particular here. The kidnappings in the US, that maybe it's not unheard of, but it's you don't hear about it with high profile or semi high profile figures.
Mm-hmm.
It is right down there on the Arizona border with Mexico, though. The house she was taken from. And it's the Badlands down there.
Definitely.
There's more to come. There has to be, unless they just carry on. Like, we all saw Howard Lutnick. He was emphatic. It was on CNN, etc. last year, emphatically say he never had anything to do with Epstein because he knew right away, me and my wife, that he was a creep. Yes, we were neighbors, but briefly, never wanted anything to do with him. No socials, no business. And now in the files, since the date he claims, they have closed on business deals, and he's been to the island.
Right, but that's
and he's still a minister in the cabinet.
But that's
will he just carry on? That, like 10, 15, 20 years ago, that's an egregious, you're done for. You're certainly fired.
Just for lying about it, but a load of them have. Like Trump, I mean, there's allegations that Trump had contacts with him after he claimed that he threw him out of Mar-a-Lago and never saw him again. You know what I mean? But Lutnick, Lutnick's an example of the response of these people, of the effect of this coming out and Epstein, Epstein being open to for public discussion. The fact that Epstein was accused and prosecuted and put in jail means that, like I said, everybody was then a bit worried about let's not talk about Epstein anymore, and I hope nobody asks me about Epstein. I hope it never gets to the press that I had some association with Epstein. As soon as someone's accused of having an association with Epstein, they deny it. You know what I mean? It's just a very clear example of what I'm talking about, where the effect of having him outed as a paedophile and
deny. And
I would question whether or not that was absolutely necessary, like in the sense of whether or not his outing as a paedophile was something that was just something that had to happen, that was normal, a normal process of a legal process where he was accused by different people and then he was brought to court and all that kind of stuff, and that because I can cite you many different examples of how allegations against people of the same or worse
of note
never went anywhere. It's hushed up by everybody. If you can hush it up in the Justice Department in the legal process, you can make that go away, and you can make the media, you can clamp down on the media, which they can and have done. Then that's it. There is nothing else. It might appear, some people might talk about it, but people won't even talk about it in social media because there's no material for it. People can't make up. People don't have access to that information if the system makes it go away. So I don't see any reason why Epstein had to be made into this, notable sex trafficker if it wasn't by design, because the precedents were it's pretty clear. I doubt anybody with any sense would disagree that criminality in high places has been successfully made to go away via both control of the courts and control of the media, and it never becomes an issue. And all there are rumors, but that's it, and it never gains any traction because of that. So why was Epstein outed, given the likely connections he had and what his whole operation was about? I don't see. Given that it wasn't just an Israeli thing, it was almost certainly a kind of Israeli/US deep state operation. Higher ups.
We managed to as conspiracy theory.
The entire internet.
We've done it a few times though. This definitely is like the headline of this show should be, title should be, it's worse than you think, or
what
the ultimate truth.
It should be what people don't understand about the Epstein Files or something like that.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go with that. One last thing. Sorry, then we'll stop because we've really said it all. But it's just a detail, but it's kind of current event. So, scroll down and go ahead and play it, and then I'll give some context. It's a clip that was apparently published as such. It's only 9 seconds long. The women/girls are redacted. Go ahead and play it there. It sounds like a plane or a train.
Plane.
There.
Top, l'avion magique.
Bien magique. Oh, so you hear that's French. So can you play it again? Might need to refresh. And then just stop it at the gentleman who we did see on the right, the black fella. Yeah, you can skip forward or whatever. Blacked out, black. And then we get to see him. Who's that? That was the South Africa's ambassador to France, who fell from the Hyatt Hotel in Paris about 12 weeks ago from a 22-story window. There he was. I don't know what that means. Is that Epstein's plane? Maybe, maybe not. But it's in the Epstein files. I don't have any other context. Maybe scroll up. Maybe she had some context to glean from it. The woman who posted this. That's his name. Nati Metewa. September 2025. He was found in a, quote, suicide after falling from the 22nd floor of the Hyatt Regency Hotel in Paris. That hotel chain is owned by Thomas Pritzker, who's all of the Epstein Files, as a close friend of Epstein's. Very close friends. They would go on, or Epstein would help for Pritzker to go on little war safaris in Afghanistan and elsewhere. Crazy town. I don't know.
They're all depraved. Every last one of them. I mean, that's it. It's broad brush, you know what I mean? You just go like, okay, obviously. And it really annoys me, you know, people like, yes, I understand that everybody in the Epstein Files, mentioned the Epstein Files, is not guilty of any criminality, because Epstein just spread a very wide net and contacted all sorts of people and just had chats with people, and that doesn't mean they're all pedophiles. But like, you know, I understand that. So that when I say they're all depraved, people should understand that I don't mean them all. Do you know what I mean? There should be some understanding here between people who are talking about this on social media and stuff, you know, that, you know, but there's a lot of disingenuous people who'd be like, what do you say? What do you mean all? Obviously not all of them. I've seen just, you know, talked to lots of different people. Stephen Hawking. Was Stephen Hawking a paedophile?
No.
He could barely wiggle his nose, like, you know what I mean? He wouldn't been up to much. So, obviously, I'm not saying all, but when I do say all, I'm talking about the top level people, and they are all guilty in one way or another. In my eyes, they're all guilty of a lack of decency and a lack of integrity at the very least.
Yeah. They could have done what Norman Finkelstein did.
Exactly.
And said, no, I don't want to be associated.
Yeah.
I'd rather throttle you, or whatever he said.
Yeah.
They all have that choice. So in that sense, yeah, you may as well use a broad brush.
Yeah. Okay.
Hopefully next week we won't be talking about the Epstein Files.
Jesus.
Because obviously the world moves on and there's other things happening. Maybe by then Ukraine will be more.
Americans, there's a lot of talk about the Europeans are starting to make in different areas, making murmurs about having to
talk to Putin,
having to reestablish ties with Russia. What a bunch of freaking idiots! Like, I mean, really, I mean,
And Baltic leaders included.
That's the hardest part about this whole situation right now. That, you know, if you're having to pay attention to it, then you're in trouble, because it's very clear that we are having to scrutinize the actions and words and intentions and behavior of a bunch of freaking idiots. This is ruled. You're being ruled by idiots. The tyranny of a bunch of retarded idiots, of complete knuckle-draggers. People who really, you know, who in no way are entitled to the positions of power and influence that they have over us, because they're literally the worst people. They're the village idiots. And in another reality, they would be the village idiots. But somehow the village idiots are all ruling over us. Not only idiots, but a lot of them are depraved in one way or another. And we're having to scrutinize and analyze the actions of a bunch of, it's like I said, when people say clown show, it's like a clown show. It's like going to the circus and taking the actual activities of the clowns as a serious drama, a real drama. You're not just a spectator. This is something that's actually being acted out. And when the clowns, you know, fall over and stuff, they're actually getting hurt and they actually fail. And it's like being asked to react to the actions of a clown, people in a clown show, as if it's real, and, you know, do some sober, serious analysis of why that clown, what the effect of that clown squirting the other clown in the face with his flower, and what the geopolitical implications of that are. It's like, these are
what are we doing?
Clowns / retards, basically. You know what I mean? And so, like, you have a bunch of people in Europe who all for the past 5 years, you know, and even beforehand, Russia did this, Russia did that, evil Russia, cancel Russia, cut Russia out, Russia's evil, overthrow Russia, destroy the Nord Stream pipelines, take Russia down, let's fight Russia via Ukraine, let's start a big war, let's cut off all Russian gas to Europe and cripple our economies. Oh shit, our economy's being crippled. Maybe we should talk to Russia. Those people,
they could have avoided that.
They literally need to be punched in the face.
Yeah.
I mean, they need to be hit in the face with a large plank of wood, or a wet fish, a shark. You can get a shark on the end of a crane and line them all up and swim on the end of an excavator. You know, tie a shark to the bucket of an excavator, start spinning it around as fast as it goes, line all them up, and then each of them get sideswiped by the shark, because fish isn't going to do it these days.
No, we've moved on. We need a shark with a rough skin, you know.
Yeah,
take the skin off.
Anyway.
Someday we'll stop. Someday, I don't know, it'll all burn to the ground. Either they'll have done it themselves, or people will.
Who knows? Who knows what'll happen? We actually have to make fun of the whole thing, I suppose, if you can, because it's weird. It's ridiculous and farcical, and also grotesque and evil in equal measure, which is a weird combination. Farcical and evil.
Yeah.
Nobody ever wrote a play that was farcical and evil.
Right.
You know, truly evil and also farcical. They don't really go together, but that's what happened to do. I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
Reconciling the nature of these people.
Yeah.
Evil clowns. Well, there is evil clowns, yeah.
Like, it emerged this week that Joe Biden's ex-husband murdered his wife.
Joe Biden's ex-husband?
Jill Biden's.
Jill Biden's ex-husband.
I mean, there's a farcical story up there about their past. Jill and this guy, what's his name? I can't remember the scandal, but it was farcical. And then the upshot is he murders his wife, his new wife. So yeah, it's both. William Stevenson, that's it, has been taken into custody in Delaware February 4th following the alleged murder of his spouse, Linda Stevenson. He's 77 years old. Again, that happens, but that's kind of like, you know, it wouldn't stand out in a rundown estate somewhere, working class. Murder, you know, passionate murder or something like that. But like these people are, the cream of the cream with their big houses and their successful lives in quotes, and it just ends in butchers his wife. Like, okay.
Yep. You gotta resist the urge to to just
but
throw in the towel on humanity in general. But
that could happen from all this.
What?
I mean, I don't know. I tend to be the one who overstates the likely implications of exposures as they come out over the years. But this is new to a lot of people when they see the extent, all the different areas that this corruption has seeped into. There's a kind of a mass. It's no longer a fringe, such a fringe thing where people are quote unquote black-pilled and they're ultra cynical about the prospects for anything. Well, there's now a mass of people feeling that, like they're evil. There's a lot of them. They control so much. Things might really start to happen as a result, and not in a good way, but not in a good way initially.
That's your cup.
Because I listened to Tucker Carlson's monologue before he talked with Ian Carroll about this a few days ago. And despite all he's heard and figured out, kind of late for a guy his age, but still he still has jaw drop moments. He's not just, amping it up for the show to get the clicks. You can sense he's genuinely going, he puts his hands to his head a few times, like, how bad is this? This is, like he said 10 years ago, Pizzagate, I dismissed it right out of hand. I said, that's ridiculous. But now I'm like, how widespread is kiddie fiddling and murder, Anyway, the knock-on trickle down effects, in the same way that polarization happens top down and seats in the society, is you get the opposite, I think, potentially in balance, where people genuinely throw in the towel, at least in their minds, in the way that you've talked and you hope would happen, and they walk away psychologically. I'm not voting. There's no point.
That would be good.
And worse, I'm not participating. And then it falls
withdraw
apart.
their consent for it. They don't realize the consent that they give to that by voting and all that kind of stuff. And it's good when people say, well, you don't vote for, saying not to vote is just it's just, it's nihilistic, you're not going to make any change or whatever. But depends where you're looking, what part of this the system that you're looking at. If you're looking at that system at the very top and it's and you see it as being occupied by a bunch of entrenched kind of psychopathic pedophiles who will never who are untouchable, well then, and if you think that your vote in some way enables that, then you're absolutely entitled not to vote. I mean, it just depends on your perspective, Anyway, yeah. Why couldn't the pony sing a lullaby? Because she was a little horse. Anyway, that's as good as it gets today. Do we have any comments?
Yeah. Cassandra writes, hope you have a good joke for us.
No, sorry. It was a very bad one. You need to bring your own. You all need to bring your own jokes. You got to contribute here. What's worse than finding a worm in your apple? Finding half a worm.
That's worse than... What's worse than finding a worm in your apple? Finding half a worm.
Yeah.
Why is that worse?
You have to think about it now.
No.
How did the worm get in half now?
Oh, because you've already got it.
Yeah.
I'm tired. Gotta go.
Yeah.
Taxi.
Taxi. You get your coat. So we'll leave it there for this week, folks. Thanks for listening and watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back next week with another one on whatever bullshit's been going on between now and then. So until then, have a good week. See ya.
Bye, y'all.
Can't stop the signal now.